Hey guys, welcome back to Chariot Palmistry. It has been such a long time since I've done a video for you guys. And for those of you who've been on my channel for a while, you know I normally do a video at least once every week, plus like a weekly members video as well. I've been so inconsistent really since the start of this year, but going a little bit into the end of last year too. My energy has just been completely flat. It's not because I'm sick or anything like that. I just think, planetary transits are off for me at the moment, and also some minor complications, I think, with COVID vaccines and booster shots as well. All of these have kind of made a perfect storm for me, and my productivity has just gone down the gutter. I'm starting to get out of it now, and I'm hoping to get back on track and making more regular videos for you guys now. So I want to start out by apologizing, and let's jump into this video. I think the best way to start this video, because it's been so long since I've posted for you guys, is actually to take a step back from the predictions of what I think will happen over April and maybe take like a longer term view on things. For those of you who've been with my channel for a while, you know that I'm predicting we're in a 3-year cycle where 2020 is a really bad year, 2021 is a good year, and 2022 continues to be a difficult and bad year. Basically, a lot of the problems that we went through in early 2020 is starting to replay themselves right now. 2020 was a year of deflation where the prices of everything went down. 2021 was a year of inflation where everyone thought we were getting out of the mess of, the pandemic, the political chaos, and everything that was going on then. Right now, all of that seems to be coming back. 2022 looks to be a deflationary year. And I'll talk more detail about this in just a second, because the headlines right now, everybody's talking about inflation. But I want you guys looking at the other side of that coin, at deflation. You see, if the Fed starts raising interest rates, they're trying to bring down the inflation, which sort of balances the other end of that scale towards deflation. So that's the real pressure for most of this year. That's a mirror of 2020's energy. And just in 2020, how there were worries about food shortages, high fuel prices, riots and civil unrest, and even wars and the risk of nuclear wars, a lot of that energy is mapping out so far into this year. And this is the big picture. So in terms of how this chaos is going to unfold, most of it's going to be jam-packed within the first 3 or 4 months of this year. So from January through to the end of April. There's going to be 3 major planetary transits that take place during this time. One of them has already happened, which is the Rahu-Ketu transit. That happened the middle of March. So when I was AWOL and not updating you guys, that happened. There's another big planetary transit, which is Jupiter moving into into Pisces, I'm sorry. That's going to be in the middle of April. That's generally a good transit because Jupiter always brings good things. But I'll come back and talk about that in a little bit. The third major planetary transit is Saturn moving into Aquarius. And that's going to shake a lot of people. So we got 2 good weeks and then we got a lot of bad weeks after that. And most of this year is going to be recovering from the trauma of the first 4 or 5 months of 2022. So once we get into April, the end of April and throughout May generally, then we start to consolidate and recover our energies. Now, I know that sounds ominous and that there's a really bad month ahead of us, but once we get through this, we get through the rest of 2020, the years after this point, we break this 3-year cycle and life gets really, really good. Businesses get back to normal, we start to get over this pandemic, there's fewer wars and conflicts, and the stock market generally just starts going up and people start making money again. So in terms of like a bad 3-year cycle, we're just past the worst of it. We've got 1 month left to go. That's a hope I want to give you guys. We get through this month and then we consolidate the rest of this year for our own energy and then we build on it. So within that context, let's talk about some of the predictions I've been making before. In my last video, in fact actually my last 2 videos, I was predicting that there was going to be a war in the northwest of India before the end of February. And my assumption at the time was that war would actually take place between either the Middle East or in India, Pakistan. You know, that region directly northwest of India. As it turns out, there was no war there at all. There are a few conflicts that took place, but there's a big war at the end of February in Ukraine, which still technically is northwest, and the war happened within the time frame I was expecting. So we'll talk a little bit just about the energy behind this move and how I predict things will pan out. But one thing I want to note with a lot of these predictions, you can get the timing right, you can get the event right, you can get the direction right. But where we Jyotishers mess up is when we put our own interpretation on things. You see, when I made that prediction, I just assumed the logical place for a war would be the Middle East, or Pakistan or Afghanistan, just because they've been so volatile lately. And that prediction, by the way, was using the Mercury, Mars and retrograde Venus conjunction in Sagittarius. So I knew there was an armed conflict, and that had happened twice last year. Once in Afghanistan when the country fell to the Taliban, we predicted that, and another one for a big conflict between Israel and Palestine that we were able to predict too. So last year, that same aspect created two armed conflicts in the Middle East. This year, that aspect has created a conflict in Europe. Still northwest of India, but technically a different continent. So that's the energy of this place. It's really just a map of, energetically speaking, it's just an extension of the fall of Afghanistan. And I know that doesn't make sense logically, that Afghanistan has nothing at all to do with Ukraine, but it's the energy. The chaos of Afghanistan is now the chaos of Ukraine. So how do I think this is going to pan out? If you want to see the future of Ukraine, look at the future of Afghanistan, which unfortunately right now is going down the gutter. I'm afraid to say I think Ukraine has some very, very difficult years ahead of it. Most likely the resolution for this war is that it isn't going to turn into like World War III, or that NATO and the US aren't going to get involved. That much should be obvious at this stage. You don't need Jyotish predictions to make that claim. But I think most likely what will happen is Putin will just steamroll over most of the country and either annex a big part of it or partition it off. I don't think he's going to be able to take all of Ukraine. In either case though, it's bad energy over there right now. My sympathies go out to all the innocent civilians getting caught up in this conflict. But that's one situation going on right now, and it's rightfully all the headlines in the news. It's taking people's attention away from the pandemic and everything else. But I don't want you guys focusing on Ukraine specifically, although for humanitarian reasons, obviously donate to charities that help out there. I want you guys focusing on America and its president, Joe Biden. One of my predictions, which has been going on for a while now, is from the middle of March onwards, Kamala Harris is going to make a run for her boss's job, and that Joe Biden will actually have either an injury to his head or will be impeached because of his cognitive decline. So there's going to be some funny business of that going on. That'll take place, I think, generally over about the next month or so. I'm also expecting, by the way, a new scandal that Kamala Harris gets involved in. So she does something really silly right now and probably starts to face the consequences of it in about November, December, January of next year. So we'll come back and we'll see how that one goes. But right now, whilst everyone's looking at Ukraine and the pandemic, have a look at Joe Biden's health too. There's something funny going on in the background there. So that's the big picture and also the minutiae of what's been going on so far this year. Let's have a look at my last video to see how my predictions for the middle of January to the middle of February went. And for those of you who are new to the channel, every time I make a video where I make predictions on the world, I throw up a screenshot of my previous predictions and I actually mark them as right or wrong. Then I tally them up just so you guys know what my accuracy rate is, but also to some degree that you guys hold me accountable to the wrong predictions I make. So this is a screenshot of my last video. It's the predictions from the middle of January to the middle of Feb. One of my predictions was that there'd be a Bitcoin price rise. That actually ended up happening. Bitcoin went up 26%. My other prediction was that there would be an Ethereum price rise. And that took place too during that time frame, and Ethereum went up 30%. My third prediction on a US dollar price fall did not take place. So this is a funny one actually to mark, because the US dollar actually went up a lot in that time frame, and it went down a fair bit in that time frame too. So the prediction didn't actually end up panning out, even though my prediction of a US dollar fall did happen. The only thing I didn't factor into it, of course, was that it'd go up before it'd fall down. So big cross on that one. My next prediction of a US stock market fall did actually take place. And it not only took place within that time frame, but it kept falling pretty much until the middle of March, when this Rahu Ketu transit took place. So we'll talk about how that particular aspect is going to affect the markets coming into like April, May and onwards. But just to close off that last screenshot, and for those of you who keep score on these things, that's 3 out of 4 predictions right so far this year. We'll be adding to that as we go on throughout the year. Okay, so that's the predictions in my last video. Let's talk about the predictions coming up for the month of April. And the first thing I'm going to predict is that the stock market will continue to rise over most of April. And then I'm predicting a stock market fall or a correction at the end of April into approximately the middle of May. So the general theory with that is, as Jupiter moves into Pisces, that should generally be good for the market. So we're going to see it going up, and then as Saturn moves out of Capricorn and into Aquarius, that should cause a mild correction. And so there's two planetary transits, two big planetary transits taking place literally within about 2 weeks of each other, and that's what's going to create a lot of volatility generally over April. That's going to confuse a lot of people, and in fact these next two predictions I make are probably going to confuse you even further. One of them is a Bitcoin correction taking place in the 3rd week of April, and my next prediction is a Bitcoin price rise taking place also in the 3rd week of April. Now the simple language for this would be just to say that there's going to be a volatile Bitcoin price. But the astrology behind all of this is, at least as far as the correction goes, is when the sun transits over Rahu, that will be using tropical measurement around about the 22nd of April. That's going to create the price to correct, because Rahu sucks the life out of the sun. I think the sun is one thing that's pushing up the price of Bitcoin. So we'll expect that volatility then. But what I predict will cause the rise of Bitcoin is the sun leaving Rahu's influence and entering into Taurus. That's always a good sign for Bitcoin. So although I'm saying rise and a correction both at the same time frame, it's going to be a very, very volatile period for Bitcoin. I'm also predicting an Ethereum correction taking place in late April. And when I read the hands of Vitalik Buterin, I saw that his energy was going to be very sensitive to Saturn moving into Aquarius. So I'm not predicting an Ethereum crash at all, but I am predicting it to fall over a little bit, then start to go up after that point. I'm very, very bullish on Ethereum in the long term. I think it's going to outperform Bitcoin even. So we'll make that prediction. Gold and silver is going to be extremely volatile. And it's going to go down a lot. It's also going to be going up a lot over April. And again, it's the play of the sun going over Rahu that's going to push it down. It's the sun going into Taurus, which is opposite Scorpio, which is a really, really good place for precious metals and that type of thing. So we're going to expect a lot of volatility there. I also predict an oil price fall to take place over the month of April. And I want to give you guys 2 bonus predictions right now as well. Normally what I do is I make like weekly videos for my members, and I've been so tardy for those guys, so I want to apologize to you guys who are my members that are watching. But in those videos I talk about how the prices of individual stocks will be affected by planetary transits there. And because in my main channel I've been so tardy with making videos, I want to give you guys 2 of those predictions that I think will come into play over the next month or 2. And one of them is an Amazon price rise, and the other one is a Palantir price rise. Now, if you guys do want to support my channel, you can click on the join link over here, and that gives you access to videos when I make them. And I'm so sorry I haven't been doing that lately, but when those videos come out, you guys get specific energy sort of maps on where we think different stocks are going. So that's where I want to end this week's video, guys. Thanks a lot for everyone who's been sort of asking about how I'm feeling and everything else on my channel. I'm starting to get out of this, and I'm hoping to do you guys a great service throughout the rest of this year by making videos like this. All right, thanks a lot, guys.